The banquet hall smelled of champagne and expensive perfume, scents I could never afford, but had learned to recognize during my years serving at La Scala. Crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across marble floors, so polished I could see my reflection. A ghost in a borrowed black dress, hair pulled back tight enough to give me a headache. Eyes ringed with the kind of exhaustion that comes from working double shifts and surviving on instant noodles. I wasn't supposed to be here as a guest. My fingers trembled as I adjusted my serving tray, the weight of it familiar, grounding. Around me, Manhattan's elite mingled in their $1,000 gowns and tailored suits, their laughter sharp as broken glass. I kept my head down, weaving between clusters of people who looked through me like I was furniture. That's what I'd become good at, being invisible. "More champagne," a woman's voice demanded without looking at me. I filled her glass, murmured something polite, moved on. The rhythm of service was muscle memory now. Pour, smile, disappear. Pour, smile, disappear. Then I saw him. Marcus stood near the orchestra, his arm draped possessively around a blonde in emerald silk. My ex-fiancé looked exactly as he had 6 months ago when he'd thrown my engagement ring at my feet and called me a pathetic charity case. But now he wore success like a second skin. New watch, new woman, new life built on money that should have been partly mine. Money from the restaurant concept we'd developed together, the one he'd stolen and passed off as his own after I'd trusted him with everything. My throat tightened. I should have turned away, should have focused on my work, but my feet had frozen to the floor. Marcus saw me. His eyes widened, then narrowed with something cruel and delighted. He whispered to the blonde, and she looked at me with the kind of pity that burns worse than hate. They were walking toward me. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Sophia?" Marcus's voice carried false surprise. "I didn't know La Scala hired you. Though I suppose it makes sense. You always did belong in the service industry." Heat flooded my cheeks. Around us, conversations quieted. Heads turned. "Still scraping by, I see," he continued, louder now, performing for an audience. "Tell me, do the tips cover that sad little apartment in Queens, or are you still one emergency away from homelessness?" The blonde giggled. Someone else smirked. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. "I'm working," I managed, my voice barely audible. "Excuse me." I turned, blinking back tears that would not fall. Not here. Not in front of these people who already saw me as less than human. My tray tilted dangerously. I steadied it, focused on breathing, on putting one foot in front of the other toward the kitchen doors. That's when the air in the room changed. It happened all at once, a subtle shift in temperature, in pressure, like the moment before lightning strikes. Conversations died mid-sentence. The orchestra faltered. I felt it before I saw it, a presence that commanded attention without demanding it, that drew every eye like gravity. I glanced back. 3 men had entered through the main doors. No, 2 men flanking a third, moving with the synchronized precision of a military unit. But it was the man in the center who stole the oxygen from the room. He couldn't have been more than 30, but he carried himself with an authority that made age irrelevant. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and brutal beauty. His suit was black, perfectly tailored to a frame that spoke of disciplined strength. Even from across the room, I could see his eyes. Dark, intelligent, dangerous. But it was the way people reacted to him that made my skin prickle with awareness. Conversations didn't just stop. People stepped back, created space, lowered their gazes like he was royalty, or something more dangerous than royalty. The two men flanking him were clearly security. Broad-shouldered, alert, hands positioned near concealed weapons. They scanned the room constantly while the center man moved forward with the unhurried confidence of someone who knew no one would dare stand in his way. He smelled of cedar and gunpowder. I caught the scent as he passed within a few feet of where I'd frozen. Expensive cologne mixed with something darker. Something that whispered of violence barely contained beneath civilized surfaces. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. His gaze locked onto mine with an intensity that felt physical, like fingers wrapping around my throat. Dark eyes that seemed to catalog every detail, every vulnerability, every secret I'd ever tried to hide. I couldn't look away. The tray in my hands shook, champagne glasses rattling. Then he moved on, and I could breathe again. Jesus Christ, someone whispered nearby. That's Dante Moretti. The name meant nothing to me, but the fear in the speaker's voice meant everything. What's he doing here? Another voice hissed. I thought he only attended these things when he needed to send a message. I forced myself to move toward the kitchen, my legs unsteady. Behind me, I heard Marcus's voice, louder than before, trying to recapture his audience's attention. As I was saying, some people just can't help where they end up in life. Mr. Bennett. The voice was quiet, cultured, with an accent I couldn't place. Italian, maybe, smoothed by years in America. But it cut through Marcus's monologue like a blade through silk. I turned again, unable to help myself. Dante Moretti stood directly in front of Marcus. Up close, the contrast was stark. Marcus in his designer suit that suddenly looked cheap, the blonde shrinking back, while this dark-eyed stranger radiated a power that needed no announcement. I don't believe we've been introduced, Marcus said, but his voice had lost its confidence. His hand reached for the blonde's, seeking reassurance. No, Dante agreed. We haven't. But I know who you are. And I know what you did. The words hung in the air like a threat. Marcus's face went pale. I'm sorry, I don't... The restaurant concept, Dante continued in that same quiet, devastating tone. The one you stole from your former partner. The one you've been passing off as your own vision. Around them, people had created a wide circle. No one moved. No one breathed. How did he know? The question screamed through my mind, but I couldn't voice it. I could only watch as Marcus stammered excuses, as the blonde detached herself and melted into the crowd, as this dangerous stranger dismantled my ex's entire persona with surgical precision. I don't know what you've heard, but I make it my business to know things, Dante said. His hands remained in his pockets, his posture relaxed, but there was nothing relaxed about the promise in his eyes. particularly when those things involve people who interest me. His gaze shifted, found mine across the room. Everything stopped. The tray slipped from my numb fingers. It seemed to fall in slow motion. Crystal glasses tumbling through air, champagne arcing like liquid gold in the chandelier light. The crash when it hit the marble was deafening, sharp enough to make people jump, to shatter the frozen tableau. I stood in a spreading pool of champagne and broken crystal, my cheap dress splattered, my face burning with humiliation so complete I wanted to die. "I'm sorry," I gasped, dropping to my knees, reaching for glass shards with shaking hands. "I'm so sorry. I'll clean it up. Don't." The command froze me mid-reach. Dante Moretti had crossed the space between us faster than should have been possible. He stood over me, and I could see the fine weave of his suit pants, the polished leather of his shoes now surrounded by champagne and broken glass. "You'll cut yourself," he said. His hand appeared in my field of vision. Long fingers, a signet ring that caught the light, an offering, an order. I looked up. This close, he was devastating. High cheekbones, a mouth carved for cruelty or kisses, and those eyes. God, those eyes that seemed to see straight through my skin to every scared, broken part of me. "Take my hand," he said quietly. Not a request. My fingers touched his, and electricity shot up my arm. His hand was warm, strong, and he pulled me to my feet with effortless strength. I stumbled, and suddenly his other hand was at my waist, steadying me, burning through the thin fabric of my dress. We stood too close. I could feel the heat of him, smell cedar and danger. "Mr. Moretti, I apologize for my employee's clumsiness," a voice said sharply. Giovanni, the restaurant manager, had appeared, his face red with anger and fear. "She'll be disciplined appropriately, I assure you." "She doesn't work for you anymore," Dante said without looking at Giovanni, his eyes still locked on mine. The words didn't make sense. I shook my head, tried to step back, but his hand at my waist tightened fractionally, holding me in place. "I'm sorry, sir, but she works for me now." Dante's voice carried to every corner of the silent room. "And anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly." The threat was implicit, absolute. Giovanni's face went white. He retreated, melted into the crowd like everyone else. "I don't understand," I whispered. Dante's thumb moved against my waist, a small gesture that sent shivers down my spine. His expression was unreadable, but something dark and possessive flickered in his eyes. "You will," he promised. Then, louder, his voice carrying that same quiet command. "Get your things. You're leaving with me." "I can't just—" "Sophia." The way he said my name, like he'd been saying it for years, like it belonged to him, made my breath catch. "Do you trust me?" "I don't even know you," I said, but my voice shook. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "That's not what I asked." Behind us, Marcus made a sound, protest or disbelief. Dante's eyes flickered to him, and whatever Marcus saw there made him take 3 steps backward. "This is insane," I breathed. "Yes," Dante agreed. He released my waist but kept hold of my hand, his fingers laced through mine with proprietary certainty. "But you're going to come with me anyway." He was right. God help me, he was right. Because standing in that ballroom surrounded by broken glass and broken pride, with this dangerous stranger's hand wrapped around mine like a brand, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Alive. One of his security men appeared at his elbow, murmuring something too low for me to hear. Dante nodded, then looked back at me. "We need to leave. Now." "Why?" The word came out smaller than I intended. His jaw tightened. "Because in approximately 30 seconds, people are going to remember how to use their phones. And when they do, this will be everywhere. You'll be everywhere. Connected to me." "And that's bad?" Something flickered across his face, amusement mixed with something darker. "That depends entirely on your definition of bad, cara mia." The endearment should have sounded wrong in his mouth. Instead, it sounded like a promise, like a threat. Like the beginning of something I couldn't escape even if I wanted to. And the terrifying truth was, standing there in my ruined dress with his hand burning around mine, I wasn't sure I wanted to escape at all. The SUV was black, bulletproof, and filled with the kind of tension that made my lungs feel too small. I sat in the back seat, pressed against the leather upholstery, hyper-aware of Dante beside me. Close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Far enough that we weren't touching. Though somehow the space between us felt more intimate than contact would have been. His security sat in front, silent and alert. The one driving had introduced himself only as Marco. The other hadn't bothered with a name at all. "Where are we going?" My voice sounded strange in the quiet, too loud and too small at once. "Somewhere safe." Dante's attention remained fixed on his phone, thumb moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. Even distracted, he radiated the kind of focused intensity that made me nervous. Safe from what? That made him look at me. In the dim interior, his eyes were almost black, unreadable. From the consequences of being seen with me. "I didn't ask to be seen with you." The words came out sharper than intended, fear masquerading as anger. "I didn't ask for any of this. You just decided, like I didn't get a choice." His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he might actually apologize, might acknowledge the insanity of what he'd done. Claiming me in front of Manhattan's elite like I was property he'd just acquired. Instead, he said, "Would you rather I left you there? Let Marcus finish humiliating you in front of everyone who matters in this city?" The question hit like a slap. Because no, I wouldn't have wanted that. But admitting it felt like giving him permission for the kidnapping, and that's what this was, wasn't it? Kidnapping dressed up in expensive suits and bulletproof cars. "You don't know anything about me," I said quietly. "I know more than you think." He pocketed his phone, turned to face me fully. The movement brought him closer, and I caught that scent again, cedar and something darker. Dangerous. I know Marcus Bennett stole your restaurant concept 6 months ago. I know he used connections from his family's law firm to ensure you had no legal recourse. I know he proposed to you 3 weeks before the theft, then broke it off the day after he secured funding in his name alone. Each word landed with surgical precision, reopening wounds I'd thought were beginning to scab over. How? I know you've been working 3 jobs to pay off debts he left in your name. I know you live in a 5th-floor walk-up in Queens with a broken heating system. I know you eat 1 meal a day and tell yourself it's intermittent fasting when really you're just trying to survive until your next paycheck. Horror crawled up my spine. You've been watching me. Yes. No apology, no justification, just brutal honesty delivered in that quiet, devastating voice. Why? The question came out as a whisper. His hand moved and I flinched, couldn't help it. But he only reached past me to pull the seatbelt across my body, his knuckles brushing my collarbone as he clicked it into place. The touch was brief, almost impersonal, but it left my skin burning. Because 4 months ago, you served me coffee at that diner in Midtown. The one that opens at 5 a.m. for the early shift workers. He settled back, but his eyes never left my face. You were crying, trying to hide it, wiping your eyes when you thought no one was looking. But I saw. I remembered that morning. Remembered the foreclosure notice I'd received, the final warning from my landlord, the crushing weight of realizing I might actually end up homeless. Remembered serving coffee to suited businessmen who didn't bother to look at my face, who left change as tips like they were doing me a favor. I didn't remember him. You asked if I wanted cream, he continued. When I said no, you smiled, this tiny, broken thing, and said, I admire that, taking things bitter. Like you understood something about bitterness that most people don't. My throat constricted. That's not... I don't remember. I know. I was forgettable then. Just another customer. His mouth curved without humor. But you weren't forgettable to me, Sophia. And when I make note of something, I don't let it go. The words should have terrified me. Instead, they sent a dangerous warmth through my chest, the kind that comes from being seen when you've spent so long invisible. So what? I forced steel into my voice. You've been stalking me for 4 months because I served you coffee and made a throwaway comment about cream? No. He leaned closer, and suddenly the spacious back seat felt suffocating. I've been watching you, because something about your pain called to something in me. Because I saw strength in you that you don't even recognize in yourself. And because when I did a background check and discovered what Marcus had done, I decided that anyone who could survive what you've survived deserved better than serving champagne to people who see her as furniture. A background check, I repeated numbly. I'm a thorough man. You're a criminal. The accusation hung between us. I waited for denial, for anger. Instead, he smiled. A real smile this time, dark and almost amused. Yes, I am. The admission stole my breath. Then why would you think I'd ever— Because you have nowhere else to go, Kara. The endearment again, possessive and soft. Because Marcus destroyed your reputation in the restaurant industry. Because your landlord is filing eviction papers next week. Because you're drowning, and I'm offering you a lifeline. A lifeline with strings attached. Everything has strings. His hand moved to my chin, tilting my face up to meet his eyes. The touch was gentle, but there was steel beneath it, a promise that if I tried to pull away, he wouldn't let me. The question is whether you're strong enough to hold on to the rope, or proud enough to let yourself drown. I should have pulled away. Should have demanded he let me out of the car. Should have run back to my broken heating and instant noodles and the slow death of dignity that came with poverty. But his thumb brushed across my lower lip, and my breath stuttered. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. Everything. The car stopped. I hadn't noticed we'd been moving through narrower streets, away from Manhattan's glittering towers toward something older, more exclusive. Now we sat before iron gates that opened silently, revealing a private drive lined with manicured hedges. "Welcome home," Dante said, releasing my chin but not my gaze. The house, mansion really, rose from the darkness like something out of a Gothic novel. Stone and glass, old money and new security systems, windows that glowed with warm light against the night sky. Marco opened my door. I stepped out on trembling legs, my server's shoes crunching on gravel that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "This is insane," I said to no one in particular. "Yes," Dante agreed, appearing at my elbow. His hand found the small of my back, guiding me forward. "But you're here anyway." Because he was right. Because I had nowhere else to go. Because some self-destructive part of me wanted to see where this dangerous path led. The interior was all dark wood and expensive art, the kind of space that whispered old money and older secrets. A woman appeared, 50-ish, gray-haired, with kind eyes that assessed me with maternal concern. "This is Teresa," Dante said. "She manages the household. Teresa, this is Sophia. She'll be staying in the East Wing." "Of course, Mr. Moretti." Teresa's accent was thick Italian, her smile genuine. "Welcome, dear. You look exhausted." "When did you last eat?" The question, so simple and caring, nearly broke me. This morning. Coffee." Her expression tightened with disapproval, and she fired off something in rapid Italian at Dante. He responded in the same language, his tone placating. Whatever he said made Teresa shake her head, but move toward what I assumed was the kitchen. "She's going to feed you," Dante translated unnecessarily. "And then she'll show you to your room. You need rest. I need answers." I turned to face him fully, drawing on reserves of courage I didn't know I still possessed. "You can't just collect me like a stray and expect me to be grateful. I need to know what this is, what you expect, what happens next." He studied me for a long moment, and I saw approval flicker across his features. "Fair enough, but first you eat, then we talk." "No." I crossed my arms, knew I looked ridiculous in my champagne-stained dress, making demands in a mansion that probably had more bathrooms than my entire apartment building. Now, or I walk out that door. You won't make it to the gate. The casual certainty of the statement sent ice through my veins. Is that a threat? It's a fact. My security won't let you leave. Not tonight. Not until I'm certain you're safe. Safe from what? I demanded, voice rising. You keep saying that, but safe from what? From Marcus. Dante's expression went cold, dangerous. From his family's connections. From the attention you'll receive after being seen leaving with me. From every vulture in this city who'll want to know who you are and how they can use you to get to me. The enormity of it crashed over me like a wave. I didn't ask for this. No. He stepped closer, and I held my ground even though every instinct screamed to retreat. But it's yours now anyway. The moment I touched you, the moment I claimed you in that ballroom, you became mine in the eyes of everyone who matters. And what's mine, I protect. I'm not yours. But my voice shook. His hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. Not yet, but you will be, cara mia, because I'm patient and I'm thorough and I don't lose. This is crazy. Yes. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel his breath against my lips, close enough that if I moved even an inch, we'd be kissing. But you're still here. Teresa's return saved me from having to respond. She carried a tray laden with food, pasta and cream sauce, bread that smelled like heaven, wine that probably cost more than my car. Eat, Dante commanded, stepping back but not away. Then rest. Tomorrow, we'll talk about everything else. I wanted to argue. Wanted to demand answers, to assert some kind of control over a situation that had spiraled entirely out of my grasp. But the smell of that food made my stomach clench with desperate hunger, and the exhaustion I'd been fighting for months suddenly crashed over me like a tidal wave. So I ate. And Dante watched me with those dark, possessive eyes that promised everything and threatened just as much. When I finally pushed back from the table, full for the first time in weeks, he stood and offered his hand again. Come, I'll show you to your room. The east wing was a maze of hallways lined with art I couldn't appreciate and doors I didn't dare open. He stopped at the last one, pushed it open to reveal a bedroom that could have housed my entire apartment. There are clothes in the closet, he said. Your size. Tomorrow we'll get you anything else you need. How do you know my size? But I already knew the answer. Background checks, surveillance, the thorough attention of a man who made knowing things his business. Sleep, Sophia. He turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. And don't try to leave. Marco and his team are stationed throughout the house. They won't hurt you, but they won't let you go either. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. His jaw tightened. There's a difference. Is there? He looked at me for a long moment, and something almost like regret flickered across his features. Get some rest. We'll continue this tomorrow. The door closed with a soft click. I heard the lock engage from the outside. Prisoner then. Protected prisoner, maybe, but caged nonetheless. I should have been terrified. Should have been planning escape routes, cataloging weapons, doing all the things you're supposed to do when a dangerous man locks you in a gilded cage. Instead, I walked to the window and looked out at manicured grounds bathed in moonlight, at iron gates designed to keep the world out or me in, and I wondered what kind of woman I'd become, that some part of me, small but growing, didn't entirely want to escape at all. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of fresh coffee. For a disoriented moment, I thought I was late for my shift at La Scala, that I'd overslept in my queen's apartment. Then memory crashed back. The ballroom, the broken glass, Dante's hand burning around mine, the locked door. I sat up too quickly, and the silk sheets, actual silk, cool and impossibly soft, slid against my skin. I was wearing a nightgown I didn't remember putting on, though I vaguely recalled Teresa helping me out of my ruined dress, murmuring soothing words in Italian while I swayed with exhaustion. A knock at the door made me jump. "Come in," I called, then realized how absurd that was. I was the prisoner here. But the door opened, and Teresa entered with a tray. "Good morning, dear. I hope you slept well." The door was locked. I tried to keep accusation out of my voice. None of this was Teresa's fault. Her expression tightened with sympathy. "Mr. Moretti's orders. For your protection," he said. "Does he lock up all his house guests?" "You're not a house guest." She set the tray on the bedside table, more food than I could possibly eat, coffee that smelled like heaven. "You're special." The word hung between us, weighted with meaning I didn't understand. "Where is he?" I asked. "Meetings. He left very early." Teresa smoothed the bedspread with practiced efficiency. "But he asked that you join him for lunch, in his office, 1 o'clock. A command dressed as an invitation. And if I refuse?" Teresa's smile was gentle but knowing. "Then he'll come here instead. And I suspect you'd prefer the illusion of choice, yes?" She was right. I nodded, defeated. After she left, I explored the room properly. The closet held an entire wardrobe in my exact size. Casual clothes, formal dresses, shoes arranged by height and style. Everything expensive, everything perfect, everything chosen by a man who'd been watching me long enough to know my measurements. I should have felt violated. Instead, I felt seen in a way that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. I chose jeans and a simple sweater, both softer than anything I'd owned before. They fit perfectly. Of course they did. The door was unlocked now. I tested it carefully, half expecting alarms, but it opened silently onto the hallway. Freedom, or the illusion of it. I wandered through the mansion like a ghost, cataloging exits, noting security cameras hidden in crown molding, seeing Marco stationed near the front entrance. He nodded politely, but positioned himself between me and the door. Protected. Prisoner. The line blurred more with each passing hour. The library drew me in, floor-to-ceiling shelves, leather chairs, the smell of old paper and expensive whiskey. I ran my fingers along book spines, found first editions worth more than my yearly salary, found comfort in the weight of stories that weren't mine. He collects them. I spun. A woman stood in the doorway. 30-ish, beautiful in a sharp-edged way, dark hair pulled back severely. She wore a pencil skirt and silk blouse like armor, and her eyes assessed me with cool calculation. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. You're Sophia. Not a question. She moved into the room with predatory grace, heels clicking on hardwood. I'm Valentina, Mr. Moretti's associate. The pause before associate spoke volumes. I forced myself to meet her gaze. Nice to meet you. Is it? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I wonder. Most women would run screaming from Dante Moretti. But you're still here. The door was locked. Is now? She gestured toward the hallway. Yet you haven't left. Because she was right. Because I was trapped by something more complex than locks and security guards. What do you want? I asked. Valentina circled me slowly, and I felt like prey being evaluated. To understand what he sees in you. To figure out what makes you different from all the others who've tried and failed to catch his attention. I didn't try to catch anything. No. She stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something sharp and expensive. That's probably what caught him. Dante doesn't respond well to pursuit. But someone who doesn't know enough to run from him? That's intriguing. I'm not trying to be intriguing. Which makes you more so. Her expression shifted, something almost like pity flickering across her features. A word of advice, Sophia. Whatever you think this is, whatever he's told you, it's more complicated than you can imagine. Dante Moretti doesn't do simple. He doesn't do safe. And he never, ever lets go of what he considers his. The warning should have sent me running. Instead, it anchored something in my chest, heavy and inevitable. I should get ready for lunch, I said quietly. Valentina stepped aside, but her voice followed me to the door. He'll consume you. The question is, whether you'll let yourself burn, or try to keep some part of yourself intact. I didn't have an answer. Dante's office was all dark wood and darker secrets. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds, but the glass was tinted, turning the world outside into shadow. He sat behind a massive desk, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian that sounded like orders. He saw me and held up one finger. Wait. I waited, because what else could I do? The office told stories his face never would. A chessboard with a game in progress. Books on strategy and philosophy. A photograph on the desk, turned away from me but there nonetheless. And guns. I saw them now, noticed the shoulder holster visible when his jacket shifted, the locked cabinet that probably held more. This was who he was. Not just wealthy, not just powerful, dangerous. He ended the call, set the phone down with deliberate care. You look rested. I was locked in. For your protection. So I keep hearing. I moved to stand in front of his desk, refused to sit until invited. Your associate, Valentina. She seemed to think I should run. Something dark flickered in his eyes. Valentina oversteps. Does she? Because she seems to know you pretty well. She works for me. That's all you need to know about Valentina. He stood, moved around the desk with that fluid grace that reminded me of predators. Did she frighten you? Should she have? His mouth curved. You're braver than you pretend, cara mia. Or more desperate. The honesty escaped before I could stop it. You said we'd talk, so talk. Tell me what this is. What you want from me. He gestured to the leather couch against one wall. This time, I sat. He settled beside me, close but not touching, though I felt the heat of him like a brand. What do you know about my family? He asked. Nothing. Until last night, I'd never heard your name. Good. He leaned back, one arm draped along the couch back behind me. That means you're not here for my money or my connections. That what I see in you is real, not performance. What do you see in me? The question came out smaller than I intended. His hand moved to my hair, tucking a strand behind my ear with devastating gentleness. Strength, resilience, the kind of fire that doesn't burn out, no matter how much the world tries to extinguish it. My breath caught. You don't know me well enough to see that. I've been watching you for 4 months, Sophia. I've seen you work triple shifts and never complain. I've seen you give your last dollar to a homeless woman, even though you were hungry yourself. I've seen you rebuild yourself from nothing after Marcus tried to destroy you. His thumb traced my jawline. I know you better than you think. That's not knowing someone. That's surveillance. It's both. No apology, just brutal honesty. I don't do anything halfway. When something captures my attention, I learn everything about it. And you, Kara, captured my attention the moment you smiled through tears and said you admired bitterness. Because it reminded you of yourself, I said quietly. His eyes darkened with approval. Yes. So what am I to you? A project? A pet? Someone to save so you can feel less like a monster? The words were cruel, born from fear and confusion, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned closer, until his forehead almost touched mine. You're mine, he said simply. To protect, to provide for, to keep safe from everyone who would hurt you. Including yourself, especially myself. His hand cupped my face, and I saw something raw in his expression. Vulnerability quickly masked. I'm not a good man, Sophia. The things I do, the world I live in, it's dark, dangerous. Most people don't survive proximity to me. Then let me go. I can't. The admission sounded like it cost him. I've tried. For 4 months I told myself to stay away, that you deserved better than what I could offer. But then I saw Marcus humiliating you, saw you on your knees in broken glass, and something in me just broke. His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and heat pooled in my stomach despite every logical reason to pull away. I need you to understand something, he continued, voice dropping to that dangerous whisper. From the moment I touched you last night, you became a target. Everyone who wants to hurt me will see you as the way to do it. I can't undo that. Can't make you invisible again. So I'm trapped. You're protected, he corrected. There's a difference. Is there? I echoed my words from last night. Because from where I'm sitting, they feel the same. His jaw tightened. Then let me show you the difference. He stood, offered his hand. Against every instinct of self-preservation, I took it. He led me through the mansion to a room I hadn't found in my wandering. It opened onto an indoor pool, but that wasn't what made me gasp. The far wall was entirely glass, overlooking gardens that could have been stolen from a European palace. This is yours, Dante said. This room, those gardens. Anywhere in the house, on the grounds. You're not trapped, Sophia. You're free to move, to explore, to live. As long as I don't try to leave. As long as you stay safe. His hand tightened on mine. I know it's not perfect. I know it's not what you would have chosen. But it's better than what you had. Better than struggling to survive. Better than Marcus's cruelty. Better than being invisible. He was right, and I hated that he was right. "I want to make you a deal," he said. "What kind of deal?" "Stay. For 1 month. Let me protect you, provide for you, show you what life could be like without constantly fighting to survive. If at the end of that month you want to leave, I'll let you go. Set you up with enough money to start over somewhere Marcus can't touch you." It sounded too good to be true. "And if I stay?" Something fierce and possessive blazed in his eyes. "Then you become mine in truth, not just under my protection, but by my side. In my world, in my life, in my bed." The last word sent heat cascading through me. "That's not a deal. That's a choice." He turned me to face him fully, both hands framing my face now. "The first real choice you've had in months, maybe years. I'm not forcing you, cara mia. I'm offering you an alternative to the life that was killing you slowly. An alternative that comes with danger and darkness and someone who sees you." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Someone who knows your worth. Someone who would burn the world down before letting anyone hurt you again." "You're insane," I breathed. "Probably." His mouth curved into that dark smile. "But you're still considering it." Because I was. God help me, I was. Standing in that beautiful room with gardens stretching beyond, and this dangerous man's hands gentle on my face, I was actually considering trading one cage for another. Except this cage came with silk sheets and full meals, and someone who looked at me like I mattered. 1 month, I said finally. His eyes flashed with triumph, with possession, with something that looked almost like relief. 1 month, he agreed, starting now. Then he kissed me. His mouth was gentle at first, testing, giving me space to pull away. But when I didn't, when I leaned into him instead, my hands fisting in his shirt, the gentleness transformed into something consuming. He kissed like he did everything else, thoroughly, completely, with an intensity that left no room for doubt about his intentions. His tongue traced my lower lip, and I opened for him. Let him in. Let him taste and claim and possess. I'd been kissed before. Marcus had kissed me with practiced charm, with the calculated passion of someone following a script. This was different. This was being devoured, being claimed, being marked as his in a way that had nothing to do with words and everything to do with the way his hand tangled in my hair, the way his other arm banded around my waist, pulling me flush against him. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. 1 month, he repeated against my lips. And then, cara mia, you'll never want to leave. It sounded like a promise. It sounded like a threat. It sounded like the absolute truth. The days blurred together in a strange mixture of luxury and captivity. I woke each morning to breakfast Teresa prepared with maternal care, spent afternoons in the library or gardens, and joined Dante for dinner when his mysterious meetings allowed. He never told me details about his business, but I learned to read the tension in his shoulders, the darkness in his eyes when calls came at odd hours. A week passed, then 2. I stopped jumping when Marco appeared around corners, stopped cataloging exits I'd never use. Started sleeping through the night without nightmares of Marcus's cruelty or eviction notices. Started forgetting what it felt like to be invisible. Dante was attentive. Obsessively so. He wanted to know what I ate, what I read, how I'd slept. His questions felt less like conversation and more like inventory, cataloging every detail, filing it away in that meticulous mind. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like being seen under a microscope, every flaw and fracture examined with something approaching reverence. "You're staring," I said one evening over dinner. We sat at opposite ends of a table built for 12, expensive wine neither of us had touched. "I'm appreciating." His mouth curved. "There's a difference." "Is there?" I took a bite of pasta Teresa had outdone herself on, watched him watch me eat. "Because it feels like you're waiting for me to do something unexpected." "You're always unexpected, Kara." He stood, moved around the table with that liquid grace, stopped beside my chair. "That's what I appreciate most." His hand settled on my shoulder, thumb tracing my collarbone through the silk dress he'd had delivered that morning. Black, elegant, far too expensive. Like everything else in this gilded cage. "The month is half over," I said quietly. "I know. And you still haven't told me anything real about yourself, about your business, your family, why people fear you." His hand stilled. "Would you like me to?" I turned to look up at him. "Yes." Something shifted in his expression, calculation giving way to decision. "Come with me." He led me back to his office, to the windows overlooking darkness. The city glittered in the distance, but here we were removed, separate, existing in our own world. "My grandfather built this empire," Dante began, voice low. "Started with nothing in Naples, came to America with violence and ambition. Built something that couldn't be touched, couldn't be destroyed. Passed it to my father, who expanded it. Made it legitimate on the surface while keeping the darkness underneath. He poured whiskey, 2 glasses, handed me one. I took it, though I rarely drank. And then my father was killed." The words were flat, emotionless. I was 23, still in business school, still pretending I could be anything other than what I am. His enemies thought I'd be weak, thought they could take what he'd built. But you weren't weak. No. He drank, and I saw ghosts in his eyes. I was ruthless, efficient. I eliminated every threat, consolidated every loose end, made examples of anyone who thought they could challenge me. By the time I was 25, I'd made this family untouchable again. And the cost? His laugh was bitter. Everything that makes someone human. Trust, softness, the ability to let people close without calculating how they could betray me. I set down my untouched glass, moved to stand in front of him. Then why me? Why bring me into this if you can't trust anyone? Because you didn't ask to be here. His hand cupped my face with devastating gentleness. Because you have nothing to gain from betraying me, and everything to lose. Because when I look at you, I see someone who survived despite everything, and that resonates. I'm not strong like you think I am. You're stronger. His thumb traced my lower lip. You survived without becoming cruel. I survived by becoming a monster. You're not a monster. Aren't I? His smile was dark. I've killed people, Sophia. Ordered deaths, pulled triggers myself when necessary. I've destroyed lives to protect what's mine. I've built an empire on fear and blood and the kind of violence that would make you run screaming if you truly understood it. The confession should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself reaching up, covering his hand with mine. Then why does it feel safe with you? The question escaped before I could stop it. Why do I sleep better here than I ever did in my own apartment? Because you know I'd never hurt you. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Because whatever monster I am to the rest of the world, with you, I want to be different. Want to be, or are? I don't know yet. Brutal honesty. But I'm trying. The kiss was inevitable. His mouth claimed mine with the same intensity as before. But underneath the possession was something gentler, almost tentative, like he was offering me something precious and fragile. I kissed him back, poured weeks of confusion and fear and growing attachment into the contact. His arms came around me, lifting me effortlessly until I sat on the edge of his desk, his body between my thighs. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against my lips. "No." His groan vibrated through both of us. His hands found my waist, slid up my ribs, careful and controlled even as his kiss turned consuming. I felt his restraint like a living thing, felt how much he wanted to take more, and how fiercely he held himself back. "Dante." A knock shattered the moment. We broke apart, both breathing hard. Dante's expression shifted from desire to cold authority in an instant. "What?" he bit out. Marco opened the door, face apologetic but urgent. "Sir, we have a situation. Marcus Bennett is at the gate." Ice flooded my veins. "What?" Dante's jaw tightened, and I saw murder flash in his eyes before he controlled it. "How did he find this location?" "Unknown, sir. But he's demanding to speak with you. Says it's about Miss Sophia." "No." Dante's voice was absolute. "Tell him to leave before I have him removed permanently." "Wait." I grabbed his arm. "What does he want?" "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." I turned to Marco. "What did he say exactly?" Marco glanced at Dante, who gave a curt nod. "He claims Miss Sophia was taken against her will. That he's concerned for her safety." Laughter bubbled up, bitter and sharp. "Concerned. He's concerned. Sophia." Dante's hand found my waist, possessive. "You don't have to see him. Say the word and he'll never bother you again." The implication was clear. Terrifying. Thrilling. "No," I said. "I want to talk to him. I want to see his face when I tell him exactly what I think of his concern." Dante studied me for a long moment. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Something like pride flickered across his features. "Then we'll see him together. Marco, have him brought to the library, full security detail, and make sure he understands that one wrong move, one word I don't like, and he'll regret ever coming here." Marcus looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd grown larger, not in size, but in presence. Standing beside Dante in the library with Marco and 2 other guards positioned strategically, I felt armored in a way I'd never experienced before. Marcus's eyes found me, widened with something that might have been concern if I didn't know him better. "Sophia," Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for weeks." "Have you?" My voice was flat, emotionless. "How strange, since you had no trouble reaching me when you wanted to humiliate me in public." He flinched. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. But this... He gestured around the library, at Dante standing beside me like a dark angel. "This isn't safe. You don't know who this man is, what he's capable of." "I know exactly who he is." I took a step forward, felt Dante's hand settle on my lower back. Support, not restraint. He's someone who sees me as more than furniture, someone who hasn't stolen from me, lied to me, or thrown my worth in my face. He's a criminal, Sophia, a mobster. Do you understand what that means? Better than you understand what loyalty means, apparently. Marcus's expression shifted, and I saw calculation behind the concern. Is he forcing you to say this? Threatening you? The only person who ever threatened me was you. The words came easier than I expected, months of suppressed anger finally finding voice. When you stole my work, when you destroyed my reputation, when you made sure I couldn't fight back legally. I did what I had to do for my career. You did what benefited you, regardless of who it hurt. I moved closer, and satisfaction bloomed when he took a step back. You took everything from me and called it ambition. Dante gave me back my dignity and called it protection. So yes, Marcus, I understand exactly who the dangerous man in this room is. You can't seriously think. I think, Dante interrupted, his voice quiet and absolutely lethal, that you have 30 seconds to leave my property before I forget that Sophia asked me to let you walk out of here alive. Marcus's face went pale. His eyes darted between us, looking for cracks, for vulnerabilities to exploit. Finding none. This isn't over, he said finally. Yes, I replied. It is. We're over. Your ability to hurt me is over. Whatever concern you're pretending to have, that's over too. Leave, Marcus, and don't ever come back. He left, escorted by Marco with enough force to make his exit clear. The door closed, and silence settled over the library like snow. You were magnificent, Dante murmured. I turned to find him watching me with something fierce and proud blazing in his eyes. I was angry. You were strong. He pulled me against him, and I went willingly, let myself be held by this dangerous man who somehow felt safer than anyone I'd known. He'll try again. Men like Marcus don't accept defeat gracefully. Let him try. I looked up, met those dark eyes. I'm not the same person I was when he broke me. No. His mouth curved into that dangerous smile. You're mine now, and I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have rankled. Instead, it settled over me like armor, like promise, like the beginning of something I couldn't name, but desperately wanted. The month isn't over yet, I reminded him. I know. His hand tangled in my hair, tilting my face up. But we both know you're not leaving when it is. Confident. Certain. He kissed me, slow and deep and claiming. Because you feel it too, cara mia. This thing between us. This inevitability. He was right. Somewhere between locked doors and careful questions, between silk sheets and searching looks, I'd stopped planning escape routes and started imagining futures. Dangerous futures. Dark futures. But futures where I wasn't invisible, wasn't struggling, wasn't alone. "What happens now?" I whispered against his lips. His smile was dark promise. "Now, I make sure you never regret choosing me over safety. I didn't choose safety with you. I chose danger." "Then let me show you," he murmured, lifting me into his arms with effortless strength, "just how dangerous I can be when protecting what I love." The word hung between us. Love, unplanned and absolute. And as he carried me from the library toward his bedroom, toward a future I'd never imagined but suddenly couldn't resist, I realized I'd stopped counting days until freedom, started counting moments until I was completely, irrevocably his. 3 weeks became 4. 4 became 6. The arbitrary timeline we'd agreed upon dissolved like sugar in rain, forgotten in the rhythm of days that felt less like captivity and more like coming home. I stopped asking when I could leave. Dante stopped pretending he'd ever let me go. The shift was subtle at first. Small freedoms granted, then expanded. He took me to dinner at exclusive restaurants where waiters knew his name and feared his silence. Drove me through the city in that bulletproof SUV, Marco always present but fading into background. Showed me his world in careful increments, watching for the moment I'd flinch away. I never did. Maybe that made me reckless. Maybe it made me his. The distinction blurred more each day. "I need to tell you something," Dante said one evening. We sat in his bedroom, our bedroom now, though the transition had been gradual, inevitable. I'd started sleeping there 2 weeks ago, drawn by nightmares that only quieted when his arms were around me. I set down the book I'd been reading, studied his profile in lamplight. "That sounds ominous." "It's complicated." He turned from the window where he'd been staring at darkness, and I saw tension in every line of his body. "Marcus filed a missing persons report, claims I kidnapped you, that you're being held against your will." My stomach dropped. "Can he do that?" "He did." "The police are investigating." His jaw tightened. "They can't touch me directly. I have too many connections, too much leverage. But they can make things difficult. Ask questions, demand to see you. Then let them see me. I'll tell them the truth." "Which is?" His eyes searched mine, looking for cracks, for doubts. "That I'm here because I want to be." The words came easily now. Truth I'd stopped fighting. "That Marcus is a vindictive bastard who can't accept that I moved on." Something fierce blazed in Dante's expression. He crossed to where I sat, pulled me to my feet, framed my face with both hands. "If you tell them that, there's no going back. Everyone will know you're mine. Really mine. Not just rumor, not just speculation. Fact. I know. They'll come after you to get to me. Rivals, enemies, anyone who thinks hurting you will hurt me. You'll protect me." Not a question. I'd seen his security, felt the weight of his attention. Knew he'd burn the world before letting anyone touch what he considered his. "With my life," he promised. "But Sophia, you need to understand what you're choosing. This isn't temporary anymore. This isn't playing house in a safe bubble. This is becoming part of my world. Really part of it. I understand. Do you? His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I saw vulnerability beneath the dangerous exterior. Because once you make this choice, I won't be able to let you go. Won't want to. You'll be mine in every way that matters, and I'm not a man who shares. I don't want you to share. The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. I don't want temporary. I don't want safe. I want this. You. Whatever that means. His kiss was crushing, desperate, like he was trying to crawl inside my skin and make a home there. I kissed him back with equal intensity, months of tension and denial finally breaking like a dam. Mine, he growled against my lips. Say it. Yours. I'm yours, I breathed. The words unleashed something in him. His hands found the hem of my dress, silk, expensive, bought by him, and pulled it over my head in one smooth motion. Cool air hit my skin, but his hands were immediately there, warming, claiming, mapping territory he'd touched before but never possessed. Tell me you're sure, he demanded, mouth trailing fire down my throat. Tell me you want this. I'm sure. My fingers worked at his shirt buttons, desperate to feel skin against skin. I want this. Want you. He lifted me, and I wrapped my legs around his waist as he carried me to the bed. We fell together, a tangle of limbs and desperate kisses, clothes disappearing until there was nothing between us but heat and need and the weight of choices we'd both made. When he finally moved inside me, it felt like coming home and losing myself in equal measure. He was gentle at first, giving me time to adjust, watching my face for signs of discomfort. But when I pulled him closer, demanded more, the gentleness transformed into something consuming. He made love to me like he did everything else, thoroughly, intensely, with complete focus on learning every sound I made, every place that made me gasp. And when we finally shattered together, his name on my lips, and mine on his, I knew there was no going back. I was his, completely, irrevocably, dangerously his. The police came 3 days later. Two detectives in cheap suits, faces carefully neutral as Marco led them into the library where Dante and I waited. Miss Castellano, the older detective said. I'm Detective Morrison. This is Detective Chen. We're here about a missing persons report filed by Marcus Bennett. I'm not missing, I said calmly. Dante sat beside me on the couch, his hand resting possessively on my thigh. As you can clearly see, Mr. Bennett claims you were taken against your will. That Mr. Moretti here has been holding you captive. Marcus is a liar. The words came out cold, certain. He's angry that I left him and moved on. This is harassment, Detective. Nothing more. Detective Chen pulled out a notepad. Can you describe the circumstances of how you came to be living here? I told them. All of it. The ballroom, the humiliation, Dante's offer. I left nothing out except the parts that were mine alone to keep. When I finished, both detectives looked skeptical. And you're staying here of your own free will? Morrison pressed. Completely. I leaned into Dante's side, felt his arm come around me. I'm here because I choose to be. Because Dante treats me better than Marcus ever did. Because I'm safer here than I've ever been. Safe. Chen's tone was carefully neutral. With a known organized crime figure. Alleged. Dante's lawyer, who'd appeared the moment the police arrived, interjected smoothly. My client has never been convicted of any crime. That doesn't mean... It means, I interrupted, that you're wasting your time. I'm not a victim. I'm not being held against my will. Marcus is using you to harass me because he can't accept that I moved on. The detectives exchanged glances. Finally, Morrison stood. If that changes, if you ever need help, there are resources. I won't need them. I stood too, Dante rising with me, solid presence at my back. But thank you for checking. Now, if there's nothing else, I'd like you to leave. They left, and I felt the finality of it settle over me like a cloak. I'd chosen, publicly, officially, irrevocably. That was brave, Dante murmured against my hair. That was necessary. I turned in his arms, looked up at him. Marcus needed to understand that his power over me is gone. That I'm not his to save or claim or use. You're mine to protect. Yes. I kissed him, soft and certain. I am. The weeks that followed brought change like a storm. Dante took me to family dinners where his relatives assessed me with calculating eyes and grudging approval. Took me to business meetings where I learned to read the room, to understand when silence meant agreement and when it meant threat. Valentina became an unexpected ally, teaching me the unspoken rules of Dante's world with sharp-tongued efficiency. Don't show weakness, she said one afternoon over coffee. Don't apologize for being there. You're his now. Act like it. I learned, adapted. Became someone who could stand beside Dante at charity galas and underground meetings alike, who could smile at his enemies and mean it when I said they didn't frighten me. Because they didn't. Not with Dante's hand at my back, his security shadowing my movements, his absolute certainty that nothing would touch me while he drew breath. Marcus tried once more, showed up at a restaurant where we were dining, drunk and belligerent. Dante had him removed so efficiently I barely saw it happen. The next day, Marcus's company lost 3 major contracts. A week later, he was under investigation for fraud. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt satisfied. You're different, Teresa said one morning as she brought breakfast. 6 months had passed since that night in the ballroom. 6 months since my life had transformed from struggling survival to dangerous luxury. Different how? Stronger, more certain. She smiled, maternal and knowing. You've found where you belong. She was right. Somewhere between silk sheets and stolen kisses, between learning to read Dante's moods and letting him read mine, I'd stopped feeling like an imposter in this world. Started feeling like I'd come home. Marry me. The words came one evening as we sat in the library, Dante reviewing contracts while I read beside him. Casual, domestic, terrifyingly normal. I looked up, certain I'd misheard. What? He set down his papers, turned to face me fully. Marry me. Make this official. Let me give you my name, my protection, everything I have. Dante, I know it's fast. His hand found mine, laced our fingers together. I know this isn't how normal relationships work, but we're not normal, cara mia. We never have been. You're asking me to marry you after 6 months of what basically started as kidnapping. His mouth curved. When you put it that way, it sounds insane. It is insane. But you're considering it anyway. He pulled me closer, until I was sitting across his lap, his arms around me like chains I'd learned to crave. Because you feel it too. This certainty, this inevitability. I did. God help me, I did. What about your world? I asked quietly. Your enemies? Your business? Won't marrying me make me more of a target? You're already a target by being with me. Marriage just makes my claim official, legal, unbreakable. His hand cupped my face with devastating gentleness. And it means anyone who tries to hurt you knows they're not just facing my anger. They're attacking my wife, my family. That carries weight in my world. So this is strategic. This is everything. His thumb traced my lower lip. Strategy, protection, possession, love, all of it tangled together in a way I can't separate anymore. I want you as my wife, Sophia. Want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. Want to build something with you that can't be destroyed. We're already building that. Then make it permanent. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a box I hadn't seen coming. Inside, a ring, emerald surrounded by diamonds, antique and breathtaking. This was my grandmother's. She wore it for 50 years, through wars and enemies and everything my grandfather's world threw at them. She survived it all, thrived in it. Like you think I will. Like I know you will. He slid the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Say yes, Kara. Choose me. Choose this life. Choose us. I looked at the ring, at him, at the future spreading before us. Dangerous and dark and absolutely certain. Thought about the girl I'd been 6 months ago, invisible and broken, serving champagne to people who saw through her. Thought about who I'd become. Stronger, fiercer, loved by a man who'd burn the world to keep me safe. Yes, I whispered. His kiss was claiming, possessive, filled with promises I knew he'd keep. When we finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. Mine, he murmured. Finally, completely, legally mine. Yours, I agreed. Always yours. We married 3 months later in a private ceremony that blended elegance and danger in equal measure. His family filled the church, aunts and uncles and cousins who'd all learned to accept me, if not entirely trust me yet. My side was smaller. Teresa, who'd become the mother I'd lost, and a few friends brave enough to attend, despite knowing who my groom was. Marcus wasn't there. He'd left the city 2 months prior, his reputation destroyed, his stolen success crumbling. I didn't ask what Dante had done to make that happen. Some things were better left unspoken. I wore white, traditional, beautiful, expensive as everything Dante touched. He wore black, dangerous and devastating, and when he lifted my veil to kiss me, I saw possession and pride and something softer in his eyes. Love. Real, complicated, all-consuming love. Mrs. Moretti, he murmured against my lips. The name settled over me like destiny, like coming home, like the end of one story and the beginning of another. We danced at the reception while his world watched, assessing, calculating, ultimately accepting. I was his now, officially, publicly, irrevocably. That made me family. That made me protected. That made me dangerous in my own right. Happy? Dante asked as we swayed together. I looked up at this man who'd seen me at my lowest and decided I was worth saving, who'd given me luxury and protection and a love so fierce it sometimes frightened me, who'd transformed me from invisible to essential in the span of months. Yes, I said simply. I'm happy. Good. His hand tightened at my waist, possessive as always. Because you're stuck with me now, cara mia. No escape clauses, no trial periods, just us, for the rest of our lives. I wouldn't want to escape. The truth of it rang through me, clear as bells. Not anymore. Not ever. He kissed me there on the dance floor, and I felt the weight of his world settle around us, dangerous, dark, demanding. But I also felt his love, his protection, his absolute certainty that together we could weather anything. I was Mrs. Moretti now. Wife of a man the city feared, partner to someone who'd kill to keep me safe, beloved of a monster who showed me his humanity, and standing there in his arms, surrounded by luxury built on darkness, I'd never felt more free. The girl who'd served champagne and swallowed humiliation was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd learned to thrive in shadows, who'd found strength in surrender, who'd discovered that sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the one that saves you. I chose danger. Chose darkness. Chose him. And I'd choose him again, every day, for the rest of my life. The ballroom where it all began felt like a lifetime ago. Another world. Another version of myself. Now I had silk sheets and full meals, and a man who looked at me like I hung the moon. Now I had home. And it tasted like champagne and danger and dark-eyed promises kept.